Shalom, YouTubers. Got another video on my mind I wanted to talk to you about, and I don't like to talk about it because it just starts a firestorm. Would be politics. Politics get very heated very quickly because everybody wants their man to win because their man has their ideas and they're connected to their man or woman depending on your side in your voting this year. So, what I wanted to talk today about is Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, because it seems to be like that's going to be the two superpowers matching up. I could be wrong, but that's the way it kind of seems to me. Um, my own personal opinion, I see no winner here. I feel that as far as the American people, I think that to me it's just the same person with a different mask. What gets me is all the controversy that Donald Trump has stirred up because his comments with immigrants and women and all these things, and it seems like the man can do no wrong. I'm just surprised, but with one reaction, you have another reaction. As far as a tidal wave, there was a picture I saw where it was of three Caucasian females, and where they each had shirts that said "Make America White Again," which I was just appalled, and maybe it was photoshopped, I don't know, but um, the American people, the Caucasian people at this point, are having such a problem realizing that we are not the majority anymore, and that's just the way it is. That's the way it's going to be. So it seems like Trump is the one they're clinging to try to bring that glory back, pre-60s, the hippie era of love, when the wife, of course, was at home cooking and baking and sewing and taking care of Timmy and Tommy and Susie, and Dad was at the factory working all day, and he would come home and they would get his slippers, and Fido would jump up in his lap, and the quote-unquote good days, which those days, what I don't think everybody realized, there were factories, which we don't have anymore. As far as the economy was totally different because of the situation of the war, the situation of multiple things that because America has become so, the world has become so interconnected that's the reason why America, at this point, I don't think will ever be great again as far as what America wants to achieve again. Don't get me wrong, I still believe and think that America is the greatest country in the world at this time, and people are just wanting to go back and live those glory days, but that's not how America is, and that's not how America is going to be. Because if you have the view of that the women should be back in the kitchen, then you're going to upset a group, and if you have the idea that this should be this, and you're going to upset this group, and this should be this, and it's going to upset this group. So regardless of who you go with, you're going to make somebody mad. But what gets me as far as with the whole Trump thing, when he made the comments about they're not bringing their best over here, speaking of Mexico, I can see it highly offensive because my wife is Hispanic, and it seems like because of that expression that he made, it was just like racism was alive and well, and that's what I've told my wife, and I've told a lot of people. The media wants to portray those racial lines as gone and not existing anymore. Racism is still prevalent, and that racism has reared its ugly head with Donald Trump. There were many videos. There was one of a lady where she was telling a son and mother to speak English, which I thought it was highly offensive because why would you get in somebody else's conversation? That's none of your business. And I've told my wife, if a situation like that happened, I would be the first to be right in the middle of it because once again, Caucasians came over here, and we all know the story. We took the Native Americans' land and we colonized it and we pushed everybody out. Well, now it's like it's happening to us, but from the inside. So that I didn't want to go into that big rant, but the reason why I wanted to bring up politics, as far as from Torah's perspective, we'll start with Deuteronomy 17 and start at verse 18. Deuteronomy 17:18. When he takes the throne, this is speaking of the king of his kingdom, he is to write for himself on a scroll a copy of the law, taken from that of the priests who are Levites. It is to be with him, and he is to read it all the days of his life, so that he may learn to revere Yahweh his God and follow carefully all the words of this law and these decrees, and not consider himself better than his brothers, and turn from the law to the right or to the left. Then he and his descendants will reign a long time over his kingdom in Israel. Now, you have to think, if we had a king that followed Torah, how differently this country would be because of the so many minority, i.e. majorities, different conflicting groups, because you'd have the businesses that would say, no, we're still going to work on Sabbaths, so many different things. And I think that with following Torah once again, of course, it would go against the grain heavily because of so many things that are not permitted in the Bible. I think that's the reason why the country is the way it is, not necessarily as far following the Bible guidelines, but following any guidelines. To me, it says there's no set foundation rule of what the guidelines are, because when you have a court case, one judge determines one thing. One judge can look at the same case, same situation, and then have a totally different verdict. One man could be sentenced to 10 years, another man could be sentenced to 50. There are no guidelines. And that's why I think America has become, as far as to the way it is, because there's no set standard of justice. And that's what I think America is craving, and that's what, unfortunately, I think they see in Donald Trump, is for him to be a man of justice and make things right. Which, from what I've seen, I kind of wonder if it's not an act. I mean, he has been on WrestleMania, and to me, it's kind of hard to take a presidential candidate seriously with someone who has been in that arena, quote unquote. And yeah, funny, haha. So, the next thing that I wanted to read was out of 2 Kings chapter 22. And I'm not going to go through all of it, I'll just give you a synopsis. You have Josiah. He starts reigning when he's 8 years old, and then they're doing some remodeling, so to speak, for lack of a better term. They find the book of the law is read, and it just tears everybody up, and yeah, it's a good story. I'll stop with that, because I'm going to try to be quick, because I know I'm probably boring you anyway. But the next thing that I want to jump over to is the Brit Hadashah, and I'm sure most of you probably already know where I'm fixing to go, is in Romans. And then we're going to go to Romans chapter 13, which states, everyone must submit himself to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except that which God has established. The authorities that exist have been established by God. Consequently, he who rebels against authority is rebelling against what God has instituted, and those who do so will bring judgment on themselves. For rulers hold no terror for those who do right, but for those who do wrong. Do you want to be free from fear of the one in authority? Then do what is right, and he will commend you. And I could go on there, but basically, we have to follow the laws of the land. We don't agree with all the laws that may be passed, but I think that we shouldn't be the one as far as trying to quote-unquote overthrow the government, because there's no point in that. Regardless of what we think and what we feel, God is still in control. We should step back, and of course, don't get me wrong, I think that as Americans, we should always exercise our right to vote and speak out our voice and let our voice be heard. But as far as with this election that's coming up, in regards to so many factors, get out, vote, let your opinion and your voice be heard, and wherever the cards fall, we'll have to go by it. But the point of this video is, like I said, study God's Word, study Torah, get in God's Word, because things are going to be very interesting these next couple of years. Shalom.